Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Watching Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 9th of June 2025, and today we're going to talk exclusively of the pre-budget, whole aura that has engulfed Pakistan, as well as the Pakistan Economic Survey for 2024-2025 that was unveiled today by the Finance Minister, Mr. Aurangzeb. A lot of important details were highlighted as far as the financial year 2024-2025 was concerned, whether it be the global GDP growth that was highlighted also, due to which of course Pakistan also was impacted, whether it be Pakistan's economic recovery that the finance minister said needs to be taken in a global context, whether it be the 2.7% GDP growth that Pakistan witnessed, or the inflation that has been fantastic as per the finance minister for Pakistan, the inflation that dropped from 23% to 4.6% in 1 year, and the policy rate that was 22% last year, and the policy rate that was reduced by 1,100 basis points in 1 year's period. A tax to GDP also hit a 5-year high, and other details of course were highlighted as far as the economic survey is concerned by the finance minister of Pakistan. A lot of important details as far as the economic survey is concerned, and of course this is laying the ground for the budget that is going to be presented tomorrow afternoon. Today also the session in which the economic survey was presented came a bit earlier than the previous years, which was a good omen as far as understanding what Pakistan has been through economically in the past financial year is concerned, and what to expect in the coming year as well. We've been joined by 3 guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In those, we've been joined by Naeem Siddiqui sahab. He's a political economist. Thank you very much, Naeem sahab, to have joined us. And online, we'll also be joined by 2 guests, Usman Chohan, Dr. Usman Chohan, who's an advisor on economy with CAS and a lead political economist as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman, to have joined us. We'll also be joined by Faheem Sardar, who's a leading economist as well. We'll begin with you, Naeem sahab. Naeem sahab, the finance minister, first of all, let's talk about the different important points that the finance minister highlighted during the speech that he made while unveiling the economic survey 2024-2025. He talks about the inflation that has dropped from 23% to 4.6%. He says this is a fantastic story. Is this relief genuinely being felt on the ground by ordinary citizens? How can an inflation drop really impact an ordinary citizen in the days to come, because of course the budget is also going to be presented? And the last year economically, how do you see vis-a-vis the inflation?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, the finance minister today has highlighted on the progress and the performance of the government during 24-25, and he has compared it very well with the previous 2 years. If you see the GDP in 2022-23 was 0.5%. Then the previous year it was somewhere near 2.3, and today this year they are showing it at 2.7. In the meantime, there are 2 other things which he mentioned. One was the inflation. Inflation, against they have compared it with the previous 2 years. 2022-23 it was 39%, then last year it was 23%, and this year they have shown it 4.6%. So basically, due to the government measures to curb the imports, control the expenditures, and seeing the leakage where they can block it, and little ease of doing business, making it better, living of the people was at little ease. So therefore, what you see in it, that it was a dramatic drop, is partially due to the high base effect and stabilization policies. It also translating into the real benefits like essential like food and energy products were little eased. So what I see is this, that government has definitely done a good thing by keeping the inflation low, especially because our imports have only increased say about 12%, and our export has increased to 7%. Our debt to servicing ratio has also decreased where like we have saved about 1,000 billion in terms of the debt servicing to the banks. So I see collectively, if you see all this, then you should appreciate the government efforts, that how they have tried to control, though this 2.7% growth is definitely less than what was expected, say about 3.6%. But the important thing is this, that investment to GDP ratio and saving to GDP ratio are almost the same during the last 3 years. So that is the area where we have to look into, being in consumption based economy. Wherever we are going to touch the high GDP growth, our economy start hitting, and again inflation rises. So the government should work how they can make Pakistan at export led growth, and how we can save our expenditure, and how we can I mean help the local industry, or we can encourage the local industry. And particularly two things: one is electricity, and other is the interest rate. These two things are government has promised that they will bring down the electricity about 7 rupees per unit maybe, and our energy minister is working on it. We have already brought the policy rate considerably low, and I think it will move around this till next 3-4 months, and government will have to monitor now very rigorously about the inflation, because in next budget, when budget is coming tomorrow, and I am seeing that there will be a tariff reduction, there will be certain privilege government will give as in the light of the WTO decision. So then again our economy will be heating up in coming days. So I'm very hopeful. I appreciate the finance minister about his effort what he has done in last 1 year.
All right. Faheem, 2.7% GDP growth. Faheem, 12% increase in imports is what the finance minister announces while presenting the economic survey 2024-2025. Do you feel that this recovery is being driven by real economic activity or by consumption-led demand rebound?
Okay. Basically, when we look at this economic survey of Pakistan, we have to analyze or deconstruct a few things. Can you hear me, Omar?
Yeah. Perfectly.
Okay. We have to deconstruct a few things, and basically, I think you mentioned a consumption-led growth. We basically in Pakistan we have to retool our economy, and I'll start with one of the most important points that the finance minister said, which is that he spoke of the DNA of the economy. When you have a consumption-led growth in a country, that has its own problems, and that does not mean fundamental strength. Right now, what the finance minister has said, and I just like to focus on the key points that I felt were very important. They were, number one, the DNA of the country, of the economy, that needs to be readjusted. Number two, the debt, domestic debt has been brought down by 1 trillion. And the most important point about that debt was what he said. He said the government is now not going to take loans so easily, and those loans will be on the terms of the government, which means now the banks will have to lend to the private sector. The third point is basically, if we look at the agri growth is of only 0.6%, we have to understand that this growth is neither consumption-led nor is it fundamental. So we're in a process of I dare say, a transition. So in this transition, we are trying to understand how to rebuild our economy on a sustainable footing. 4% growth as projected is good, but but it's extremely important for us to have an economy that is not import driven or just consumption led. When we talk about our expenditures, and it's going to be a long story, I won't take up too much time, but we need to sort of have a very balanced approach about how we go forward. Just last point, for this segment that when we look at the three topmost expenses of the government in the budget that we're going to see tomorrow, the first one will be debt servicing. Number two will be defense, and the third one will be PSTP. So we know where the expenses are going.
All right, we know where the expenses are going. Naeem Saab, I'm going to come back to you. Policy rate has been cut by 1100 basis points. How does it impact inflation control, monetary stability?
Yeah, the lower rate help reduce borrowing costs and save rupees 800 to 1 trillion in debt servicing. In global commodity, the prices rebounds. Lower rates could regain inflation. So this is again a risk in that.
Okay.
The government increase the policy rate only when they see that inflation is going high and their imports are going very high. So basically, a country like Pakistan has a very limited amount playing with the import and export, and particularly with reference to its trade deficit. Now, we are the only country now who are having more remittances than the export, and this is very concerning area. If we should have actually our export more than $60 billion, as our remittances are touching to the $38 billion. So, monetary stabilization requires vigilant monitoring and potential readjustment. So government will have to see it, and I think this is a short-term measures, and we have to look into the long-term measures, that instead of playing with the policy rate, we should have a long-term consistent policies for the business community and for the businesses in Pakistan, so that we should not, you see that we went up to 22%, and then we were also 7%. I remember in 2015 somewhere it was about 7%. So again, if we go back to the same place, and then again we rebound from there to the 20 level plus, and if luckily at this moment our oil prices all over the world are at a modest level as compared to the $130 or $140 a barrel. Today it is roaming about $60 or $70 a barrel, and this is a great help. The countries like Pakistan and all those countries who are economies mostly on oil import base. So Pakistan has definitely saved about $2 billion in this stuff of oil import. So I see the last year definitely the conditions were favorable, and we had a tailwind with us in a way that our macro stability was in line, and then we have now international stability as well due to this current clash with India, and the way Pakistan has played both on the war zone and also in the diplomatic channel. So I think we feel that, though, as I said earlier, though it is very difficult because if you see, there are so many countries in the world, they are much smaller than Pakistan, but their exports are in 300 or 400 billion dollars. So we should, instead of comparing ourselves with the previous year, let us now all our think tank should sit and think that how we can go up to the $100 billion in next 3 to 4 years, because that is very important for the survival of Pakistan. I don't think how long we will be playing with all short-term solutions of doing like this. And particularly if you see that if we can also digitalize or rationalize our taxation with our export and import, because these are three very important factors for the trade deficit. Your export is very important, and for your fiscal deficit, your import and your local industry is very important. So I feel that let me, as the finance minister was very optimistic this time, he has shown a very good picture of the future, and particularly I think this was in line to satisfy also to the IMF as well, that we are doing well, and by the acceptance of our lot of improvements by IMF, I think now it is the time that we should move forward with a due diligence and hard work, and with very good consistent long-term policies for the development of the country.
All right. Also, Naeem Saab, Faheem alluded a little bit to that as well. But the finance minister said that a resolution signed with the banks for rupees 1.5 trillion rupees circular debt is important to ensure future remedies. Now, when he talks of remedies, what is he exactly referring to?
Sir, again, you have about 2.6 trillion circular debt of the electricity, and then more than 3 trillion of the gas. And but he was saying that we are borrowing from the banks about 1.2 trillion to accommodate to settlement with other companies in terms of the electricity, the deficit. So I think he might be means that by taking this money from the banks, we will invest into a more progressive areas, and then we will earn from there, and then we can return it to some of them to the IPPs, and then we will control the leakage of the electricity in the country. So that is very important, as he said, that we are starting with the 3 discos who are profitable as privatization. In terms of privatization, he said that we are privatizing these 3 discos first. So I think that there must be something in his mind that in terms of the improvement of the this energy sector.
All right, all right. Let's see what happens in the next days. Let's see what happens tomorrow when the budget speech is given by the finance minister. Usman Chohan, thank you very much to have joined us. Finally, I hope the issue is resolved. Can you hear us properly?
Yes, I can. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Our finance minister talks about structural reforms, which he said were continued by the government and have been elusive in the country in the past as well. How important have these reforms been, and how have they impacted not only the economic survey, but how could they impact tomorrow's budget as well?
Oh, they certainly impacted the current fiscal year. Because we had set a target, and then one thinks about the target being achieved in light of the global commodity prices, in terms of the work being done in line with the IMF program. One has to always keep in mind that targets are always vulnerable to changes that happen, but the argument here is that structural reforms are very important. Now, as far as the IMF's evaluation of these projects goes, these reforms goes, they have expressed satisfaction. But I believe that we have a window of opportunity in Pakistan to do far, far more because of the positive political climate, that the public and the government are on one page in a unique way right now. There is a sense of national euphoria that is well deserved. I mean, there's so much room to be able to take decisions, and I credit the finance minister for the hard work that has been done over the last 3 years. It was not easy to navigate these troubled waters, and other countries didn't succeed like we did. But now is the chance for us to transition from the stabilization that was achieved over the last 2.5 years to now a growth phase. It is possible now for us to do those things. And tomorrow's speech, as you just said, is very critical in us ascertaining the temperament of the government to shift towards that while we remain in an IMF program and while we have this window of opportunity I've mentioned.
All right, Usman, the finance minister mentioned 24 SOEs that have been offered for privatization. He talked about pension reforms. He said that the government is making measures to right-size 43 ministries, 400 attached departments are being right-sized. He said 5 ministries at a time are being taken up for right-sizing. How is this going to benefit the country in the short and the long term?
Well, in the short run, such decisions can, not show the right indications that actually the long term does, where you see a much better balance between what the government is getting in terms of tax revenue versus its expenditures. There's so much work being done on the tax front, and we've put one institution in charge of that, the FBR, to deal with 25 crore people. It's not an easy task. The real question has always been about expenditure, and particularly at the provincial level. And so when the finance minister shares these steps in progress that are being taken, it is a very, very positive sign. But the gains of that will likely be seen over the medium term. In fact, I wouldn't characterize it as short or long term, but I'm talking about a 2 to 5 year horizon. You'll see that there's much better balance in terms of public value creation by the government in terms of the revenue versus expenditure. I think is an extraordinary sign that this is happening. It's a very good thing.
Usman, I'd like to also understand some of the indicators that the finance minister talked about. He talked about the inflation that has experienced a significant reduction from 20.7 in April 2024 to a near zero, he said 0.3% in April 2025. Average inflation rate July through April in fiscal year 2025 was 4.7%. In contrast to 26% in the same period of the previous fiscal year. The current account deficit, he says, stands at $9.5 billion. Imports, he says, have increased by 12%. He says we are also expecting an amount of $38 billion remittances by the end of the year, which stood at $27 billion last year. How do you see these indicators? How can they contribute to to the stability of our economy?
The most important thing to keep in mind is that we need to have a self-financed and self-sustaining economy. And the metrics that you have mentioned are important in that regard because for any society, and I've been looking at the world economy, when inflation goes out of control, societies fall apart. Thankfully, our people demonstrated that resilience and patience, and so when inflation was very high, they still managed to make it through. And now as inflation comes down, there's plenty of room on the monetary side for monetary easing and for monetary stimulus. And on the current account side, there was a tough policy on imports, which has a negative effect on growth because the inputs for our exports actually come partly through imports, and the value chain is more complicated than just pluses and minuses. So on these sorts of metrics now, as the finance minister is saying, there is more room to be more growth-oriented. I think it is a wonderful thing. But we have to also keep in mind that there is an IMF program. Damocles' sword is over our heads. And at the same time, the current global economic situation is volatile. We do see commodity prices coming down, which is a very good thing. But there's always this uncertainty. We just saw our neighbor go out of control over the last month, for example. Who knows how things will pan out? So we have to keep that room to maneuver, that fiscal cushion, in order to be able to undertake things under duress as they may occur in an untoward and unexpected manner.
All right. Faheem, to understand what Dr. Usman just pointed towards, the fiscal cushion that we need to have in order to, prepare for any further eventuality, especially when it comes to our eastern neighbor. Do you feel the government is ready for that? Do you feel we'll be seeing something of that sort tomorrow during the budget speech?
And as you can see, with the lowering of the interest rates, with the better management of the twin deficits, the surplus in our primary in our current account, these are just a few indicators of the positivity of that the government has at hand. But this has to be used very carefully because this has been very carefully crafted. Whatever we do, whatever cushion we want, and I'll just come to the eastern neighbor in just a second, we have to have an export-oriented philosophy. Everything has to be export-oriented. We cannot allow ourselves to be, consistently in a deficit, a heavy deficit when it comes to trade. If you have a minor deficit, it doesn't matter. I don't accept the fact that we add remittances and other things to our exports and then we calculate what our net position is. I mean, that's what's typically done. But we have to have a much harsher analysis for ourselves. We have to, with trades and services, we have to come up to either at par or more than the imports, and that will wash away many of the problems that we're facing. So when we talk about fiscal cushion, that this immediately comes into your thing. I'm just going to try to keep it very, very simple. Number two, when we talk about our eastern neighbor, 10 years ago, I was the one who said that they've got a lot of problems in their economy when it was incredible India. I won't expand on that, but we can take a lot of lessons from ourselves. When we look at others, that adds to our own value. That fiscal management in an intelligent manner is what Pakistan needs, and that's what Pakistan has been doing. And I'm going to circle back to what I said earlier on, which is, and I think this is tectonic. I think this is tectonic what the finance minister has said, that debt is now not going to be taken so easily, and if it is taken, it's not going to be taken on heavy rates. That basically is a very good omen for the future, because now the government, you see, the debt stockpile will start to reduce, inshallah, and that will also not only reduce the amount of burden that we have, it will also, at the same time, the government will be negotiating harder on interest terms, which will reduce the overall quantum that the government has to pay every year. If this is not done, we're going to have a very serious problem, because 84% around about is our debt to GDP. Some may argue it's less, some say it's 79. No, I would call it 84%. We cannot sustain this. We have to, and yes, I'm about to share a statistic with you. We have to bring this down to 25, 30% of our GDP. We cannot allow such a heavy burden to be there. When we talk about fiscal cushion, this is what we need.
All right. This is interesting to know, at least to understand and decipher from, layman's perspective like mine. So thank you very much to have explained that from that perspective as well. Coming to you, Naeem Saab, it has been, Finance Minister talked about 75% additional retail registration that was witnessed in taxation last year. I'd like to understand the whole taxation process in the last fiscal year. The Federal Board of Revenue, he said reported a net provisional tax collection rate of 26.3%. He talked about domestic tax collection experience also 27.7% increase. He said that 427.5 billion rupees has been dispersed in refunds during the period of July to April fiscal year 2025 compared to 411.1 billion in the previous year. He also talked a lot about in the positive of the FBR, who he said had exhibited commendable performance in revenue collection in the first 10 months of the fiscal year 2025. And he said this is because of various tax measures that have been introduced in the budget of 2024 and 2025. How can we enable the FBR to be more robust, because the tax net still has to be wider than expected?
Thank you very much for asking this very important question. Well, there are 5 or 6 main sectors of industry which are being taxed. Number one, you can say, is the industry. Industry, services, and agriculture. These are basically the basic part of your GDP. When you see your industry, industry is particularly LSM, and then the industries who are in the documentation and digitalization economy, they are very properly placed in terms of any investigation or audit from the FBR. There is no problem with the industries at all. The problem lies only where the government does not have their political will to collect the taxes from those people who are liable for taxation, but they don't pay the taxes. Now this is a very tricky, for example, if you see the salaried class, if you allow me to say, I have all the sympathy with the salaried class of this country, because government doesn't have to do any effort to collect taxes from them. It is automatic system, and it is collected from their salaries before it is paid to them. So why don't you take it an example and then implement in the other different parts, particularly on the agriculture, which is about say 21% of our economy, but doesn't contribute that much towards the revenue of the country. Though the main, what you said that the FBR has registered about 475,000 people, they can register. I only feel that there is a lot of disparity in taxation, and it is the fault on the part of the government, as the people who are earning through the documented economy or through the proper banking channels, they are exposed to any FBR officer for their returns, for the expenditure, everything. But where the people are hiding their money, for example, there are 3-4 different areas where you can park the money. I don't want to name those areas at the moment, but government knows. So therefore, they should bring in the policy, and particularly I will say that if they bring down, you know, why people don't, they tax, the only hindrance to pay the tax is the taxes. The taxes rate is so high, say it is about 39%, 29% the companies, and then 10% additional tax, and then even on the on you know, the partnership company tax go up to 45%, and surprisingly to the salaried class the tax goes up to from 35% to 45%. So if you bring down the tax to the salaried class, say about 20%, and small companies also on the 20%, and rationalize it, and the people who is paying their due taxes during the course of their financial year, they don't ask for any tax from them. But if they are paying the next tax, you can always ask them to pay the tax. Now, one thing is very, very here, I wish if Finance Minister could say something about this. I don't understand that what is the concept of filer and non-filer. Now, anywhere in the world, you don't see this term. There is no non-filer anywhere in the world. In Pakistan particularly, you have 52% population based on the female, and you see, I think the 50% might not have the account or might not have been working in the offices. So they automatically fell into the category of non-filer. And if the people who after completing their services retire, even they become the non-filer. And similarly, the people who are getting money from their overseas relatives or the parents or the family members, when they draw their money from them, they become a non-filer. So, and then you have given a privilege to the non-filer, that a filer pay buy a car of say about 7 million rupees, a filer pay a tax, advance tax about say 200,000, something like that. But a non-filer can pay a 800,000 tax, and then he is at charge. So why you are taking tax 3 or 4 times more from a filer? Ask him that we will not sell the car to you unless you come and register, and give them, incentivize it, because our economy cannot tolerate any further debacle in terms of a fiscal deficit. We have to increase our income, we have to increase our revenue, and the government can do it very easily by particularly when you ask someone to get yourself registered, why he doesn't register himself? Because you ask him to give us the detail of your previous 5 years or 10 years accounts. So be a little humble with the people and ask them, oh, come and you start paying the tax from today, and join the club of all those taxpayers. Say you said you have a 4 million or 5 million. I said we can have 20 billion taxpayers. Immediately they will come in, as you have put a 5% sale tax on the people who buy from the restaurant and pay from the credit card. Similarly, you should ask to the banks that give the credit card free of cost to everyone, and also through also every corner of the business to get the credit card and get the all the payment they should get by credit card. So automatically, like you see, now you are seeing the boards everywhere in Islamabad against the illicit trade of the cigarette. So government is driving this trade very fast. So why not you can do it?
So I understand the points that you're putting forward, and of the let's hope they go to the right quarters. Faheem, the finance minister talked establishing a debt management office as per the international standards. How can this help in streamlining our reforms and our debt management?
He was alluding to was the improvement, the strengthening, and the streamlining of that office towards more, let's just say, international, levels. Whatever needs to be improved should be improved. Whatever was already fine needs to be sustained. Pakistan needs strong debt management, but before that debt management, there has to be a philosophy, which I am so happy to hear what the finance minister said. He gave a long speech, but this thing just kept coming up, and I'm sorry I'm repeating myself so for the third time. This was so important that he specifically highlighted debt as an issue, and not taking more debt. He pointed that out, and basically reducing the size of the debt, managing it more efficiently, taking care of things more effectively. That's what he focused towards. And he also pointed out, by the way, the crowding of funds towards the private sector. This is critical. And once again, I'm going to use the term tectonic. The finance minister has taken some very stern decisions, and that this is good for Pakistan. The private sector was desperate for funds, and this debt management, you spoke of the debt management office, I've just extended the conversation. This debt management will allow the private sector the much needed financing that it's been thirsty for I think probably 10 years or so. So when we talk about the debt management office, it's already there, but it needs to be sort of ramped up to a level where it's a very dynamic office which handles things in a dynamic way.
All right. Last question for him. This is also to you. He talks about the finance minister talks about during his speech about financial institutions and bilateral partners that are standing by Pakistan. Does it show a certain satisfaction as far as the measures that Pakistan has taken in the last fiscal year?
Sorry, are you asking me?
Yeah. I'm asking you, Faheem.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I just missed the last part. If you would please repeat.
Okay, the finance minister pointed towards the financial institutions and bilateral partners that he said are standing by Pakistan. Do you feel there's a certain satisfaction as far as the measures that Pakistan has taken in the last financial year or fiscal year?
Considerable. When we talk about the IMF, when we talk about the World Bank, when we talk about ADB, and inshallah, even more intensely AIIB, Pakistan has done a very disciplined job. I mean, we may not be happy with IMF. Nobody is happy with IMF. But the point is we followed things almost to the letter. And Pakistan has always been a good client for all the mentioned. Pakistan has never defaulted, by the way. So these institutions really don't need to worry about Pakistan paying back, because you see, we're in a debt cycle, that's fine. But we have always paid our dues. If you compare it, let's say, to Argentina or Greece or some other countries, we won't get into that. But the bottom line is, when we talk about the IFIs, international financial institutions, Pakistan has done a pretty good job. And IMF cannot say at any stage that Pakistan has gone off the rail and reinvented the terms. But that's not the. You're supposed to negotiate very hard with the IFIs, but that's a separate issue. But we have whatever was agreed, we did it, and there's a lot of confidence. I think that's why, to sum it all up, the World Bank has doubled our allocation for the next 10 years. I mean, I'm not terribly happy about taking a loan, but I'm just saying that shows the mindset. IMF agreed to the in-process facility, despite our neighbor India's attempted intervention. The bottom line is we have followed the rules. We have followed the rules of the game. Yes, we have to a certain degree negotiated, but we have also made sure that we do not break the rules. So they should be confident.
All right. Thank you very much, Faheem, to have joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us end to this part of the transmission. Faheem Sardar, thank you very much. Dr. Usman Chohan, thank you very much. Naeem Siddiqui Saab, thank you so very much to have come all the way to the studios and explained so many different factors as far as Pakistan's economy is concerned and what needs to be done for the next fiscal year is concerned. This brings us to the end of this part of the transmission. We'll be back after a short break. Stay tuned. Allah Hafiz.